Hi, this is a reflection on lesson 364 in A Course in Miracles. And again, it's the same as the last 5 lessons of 361 to 365. They just give us the same one to reflect on over and over and over. So 364 says, "This holy instant would I give to you. Be you in charge, for I would follow you, certain that your direction gives me peace." So today, the part of this I want to reflect on, I think I already forgot menopause is, and I have a spot on my glasses. It's distracting me. That's also menopause. Is how that idea of follow and how, before I forget, I need to get this out. Following, and it's not some other entity or person or thing or God outside of me, but it's follow, because it says, "For I would follow you," and this thing is all about how God is inside. So what that leads me to reflect on is how through the course of this year, it's really brought me like the daily reflections, and really just being in it for a whole year. I'm still mind blown now that we're at the end of the year. We're finally here, and it's like, what the hell? That was like a year of this, of like continually orienting toward peace. And that meant letting things fall away that were not peace. Anything that doesn't look like peace or that doesn't lead me there, let it fall away. See it for how it is, let it fall away. And part of that was this idea that like I was struggling through the year of like, what even is God? What does God mean to me? What is that? And through the book and then other sources that I was like consuming, my podcasts and reading and all sorts of different avenues of that led me to inner reflection. A lot of it was like trusting, listening, hearing, trusting my inner voice, my own true intuition, if you want to call it that. And that is the God within. It's not like, it's basically shutting off or, seeing the outside noise for what it really is. Anything outside of me that used to be like, and it still gets me all like in a tizzy sometimes, like looking out into the world and being like, oh. But it happens less and less, especially through the course of this year, A Course in Miracles, and realizing like, whatever, even though I watch a bazillion podcasts, I don't do it for somebody to like tell me what to do, where to go, what to think. It's more like mind expanding stuff, like breaking me open. And I just love learning and then checking in with myself and being like, well, how do I really feel? So this, like, what do I really think about this? How do I feel? What's it bringing up within me for me to look at? And through the course of this year, what I've noticed is like there was a part of me in the past that, if I set out to do something, I always had this should. Well, then you're gonna finish. And even though I'm not a finisher, I always put that expectation on myself that, okay, if I set out to do something, it's got to look a certain way, and I've got to have consistency and structure, and it's going to amount to something, and this is what I should gain from it. And I built this whole, like, in my mind, a mind castle around the thing, and it built it up so much that it felt like it kind of robbed it of creativity, of flow, of surprise. And then also I would make myself feel bad about only reading half a book. And I have a whole, literally, I could go show you around the corner, a whole bookshelf of half read books that I used to like feel bad about. I think like, oh man, I did it again. I just love buying books and reading half of them. And finally this year, and there are a whole bunch of other things I'd make myself feel bad about because I didn't finish it, or it didn't amount to what I set out to do, or I'd start a creative project and end with like, well, that was crappy, just like negative self-talk, basically, in all different forms. And they weren't always like, oh, you're so terrible. They were just very subtle. And that can be very, like, what's the word? Sneaky? I don't know, where it's like not quite overt enough to make me really see it for what it is. uh, very clearly because it's very sneaky that way, the little ego that does that. And so this whole year was about recognizing when I'm doing that to myself and letting that fall away more and more, catching it in the moment and being like, well, that's silly. Just stop that. You're great. You're good. There's no problem here. And that was a phrase for me this year. It was like, there's no problem here. Something like a judgment thought about myself would come up in my mind or something. And I'd be like, wait a minute, there's no problem here. And that was, I'd have to say a big part of that was the book, the daily reflections of letting things fall away that are not useful. They're not useful. Anything that makes me feel bad about myself, it was like finally seeing the mechanism behind that constant, like, well, self-shaming or lack of self-worth, even though I feel like I have a lot of self-worth, but I was always like, what do you call it? Like hiding it, I guess, through other self-talk. And like I said, you might not, like some people might not think that about me when they see me or interact with me because it wasn't like the kind that made me brood or really like create a lot of dysfunction in my life in an observable way. And so that's what I mean. It was very sneaky. So that's one thing I appreciate is like that God within, that peace within, the voice I trust that is my own, that you could call God because of the way I've come to understand what God means to me is this ever-present like creation energy of infinite possibility. There are so many words that doesn't do God justice, like God. And so that's why we have the loaded word God. It's so full of all the meanings and it's hard to talk about because like, what do you mean by God? And I struggled with that this year. And to me, it's like, wait a minute, I just have to drop into that place that feels the most me, the most peaceful, the most, there's no problem here. And then I hear that true voice emerge, like what resonates, if you want to use that word, like trying to make it like more tangible, like the voice within. It's not like I have a voice, but it's like whenever I'm confronted with something, a choice, uh, something to watch on Netflix, knowing that I recognize I am very conscious now about what I let in from the outside. And that's even in the form of entertainment, because everything's going to hit that spot within that colors my emotion, colors my perception. And so I've really, really am being conscientious and maybe more intentional about what I let in. And I started that years ago with like not watching the news anymore. We don't even have regular TV stations. And so, and then certain social media I deleted. And then but this year especially, it was like, oh, well, even on Netflix, when I feel like, zoning out, like, cause I'm constantly on. So it's like, even when I feel like zoning out, I was very conscientious about, especially the latter half of the year, I want like heartwarming, heart expanding, things infused with love and nuance and unexpected surprises. And I have to say, since we're reflecting on the year, the Call the Midwife, that might have been the best thing I did for myself this year. Was I truly did binge watch it. Like every time which I know is problematic in other ways, but at least like if I was gonna watch something, I made the intention to make it heartwarming. And like, how many times I cried and the happy cries over that show this year? Oh, it was so good. Versus I used to like, let's put on the same movie I've seen a million times. Let's put on, I used to watch a lot of dark stuff, and that was great for that time in my life. And now I just want the lovey stuff, but I don't have the Hallmark channel, so we're going to watch Call the Midwife. But anyway, that's just another way to say, like, being intentional about what comes in also kind of allows that heart space to open and soften and allow that inner voice to really come through, that to not be squashed by darkness, by negativity, but you know what I mean? So that's what I wanted to reflect on today, is that follow was really like, not follow God, because that's what it talks about, but not the God that, I used to think was, people thought was out there, even though I didn't know what God was. I'm like, is that what people are talking about? And it's like, no, even this book talks about it. It's in us. We are God. And I know that's not popular with deeply religious people, in the sense of like, God-fearing people, like to fear God. It's like, what? Maybe I need a lesson on what that means, because fear, I don't want any part of fearing a God entity, because I don't fear that voice in myself. That's the thing I want to trust more than anything. And that means not fearing it. It means getting acquainted with it. Yeah. And so that's why I think, like, to say we are God, like God's in us, we are God, you're God. And to like, that's why I feel like I see the God in everyone. I have, but I never put it in those terms. I just saw the goodness in people, and I know there's a fundamental goodness in people that just, in some people, it's just more clouded over, right, by all this stuff. Because I feel like with the last thing maybe I should end on is, I still fundamentally believe, and even more so through this year, that because I've reflected on it many times, it seems like a very fundamental way to see. And I've questioned people when I meet them, and they seem open to talking about this type of stuff. I'm like, do you think you're fundamentally like whole, and that you just need to remove what isn't you to get back to your wholeness, like to let it come through? I'm not phrasing that right. Or do you think you're fundamentally you have to add stuff to you to become the whole version of you? Like, I need this and I need that, and I need to be this way, I need to feel this way, I need to embellish these traits, whatever, to be the true you? Or is it fundamentally like you are whole? There's no lack. It's just, what is clouding that? What is dimming your light from shining through? And so I like to talk to people about that, because it's like, which way do you view things? Do you feel like you're always searching outside of you to bring in something to fill a hole in order to make you whole? Or do you feel like, no, I'm whole, there's no problem here, other than maybe I've got some ick on me I gotta really look at and clean off and do that work, and then and then I can start to hear that true voice. I can start to see the real me. I can start to live more, what I would say, authentically. I love that word. I know it's like a catchphrase, a catchword, in some sorts, like spiritual circles, like your authentic self and all that. But it's like, I don't know how else to say it, when you align your inner with your outer. I don't, like, alignment, authenticity. And that's what this probably more than anything, is I'm starting to finally feel that after this year. I've been on this journey a few years now at this intensity, but this year, and I have to say it's probably because of the daily practice of A Course in Miracles, it's like I feel more and more aligned. I've got a long way to go, and that's what I've been working on today. This is New Year's Eve, and I'm planning, like my visioning for the coming year in a different way than I've ever done it before. Maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow, but I feel more and more oriented toward my alignment, toward my authenticity. I can feel it more. And now that I feel it more, I can feel where I still need to shave off some stuff, course correct, to keep aligning. So, and then there's still a whole bunch like blind spots that I'm really curious about. And that's a whole project I'm going to start doing next year. Maybe tomorrow I'll talk about my project for 2026. Now that A Course in Miracles is ending, I love a daily practice now. And I really went with a doozy for 2026 that I'm really excited about. It took a while to fine tune it, but yeah, I'll do that reflection maybe tomorrow. So, or part of the year in review with A Course in Miracles. So that I'll maybe work on today. So anyway, that's it. Thanks, Bob.